Hey, welcome back to the podcast. And today we have two new principles that we're going to be talking about. We're going to mix them up together, see where they intersect and how they interact with each other. So, we're going to be talking about legal principles and moral principles. And a legal principle, very basic, is a law or rule, something that you basically have to follow, or else you get fined, thrown in jail, all of the stuff like that. So there's different types of laws. There's laws on a municipal level or a city level, aka city laws. So I'm from the city of Yonkers, so I have to follow all of the rules that is in the city of Yonkers. But Mount Vernon, for example, has different rules than Yonkers. There's state level. I'm from the state of New York, so I have to follow all of New York state guidelines. Like to get a driver's license, you have to follow state guidelines. Education is under state guidelines and state jurisdiction. And then after state level is federal level. So federal level means national scale. We're talking like what you see in Congress, the Senate, and obviously the White House, all the stuff like that. Federal rules such as, let's say, like the legalization of heroin, right? On a federal level, if a federal government or if it's a federal legislature, then all the states have to follow it, right? Like kind of no matter what. States can choose to obviously find it unconstitutional or whatever, but that's a whole different process and it's very complicated. But in general, federal laws apply to all the states, state laws apply to all the cities and counties, and city laws apply to all the constituents within that city. So after legal principle is moral principles. So these aren't really set in stone ideas. They're more generally accepted views and values that a society has. So it's the right or wrong, right? But it's not the legal right or wrong. It's what people think is right or wrong, or what people feel is right or wrong, rather. So moral principles change all the time. Like, our principles or ideas of, let's say, gay rights, it wasn't the same than it was 20 years ago, 30 years ago, but now obviously gays are completely accepted, right? And we are morally in line with the acceptance of unique sexualities, for example. So moral principles aren't legal principles, and they do not reflect legal principles pretty much at all. In fact, it's the other way around. Legal principles are made on moral principles. Moral arguments or moral principles aren't used in legal cases. Now, that is because moral principles are generally anecdotal and very feelings based. So we could go to, let's say, an abortion case, for example. In abortion cases, the moral argument for, if you're an advocate for to have abortion, would be that it's the woman's right to choose, and like it's their feelings or whatever they want, and that's all that matters. If you are using a moral argument against abortion, you would say, well, without evidence to back you up, that that the mother and doctor are just innocently killing children, and indiscriminately killing children, and like it's nonsensical mass genocide or whatever. That's a moral argument that doesn't have a legal basis and therefore cannot be used in legal rulings. Now, where they intersect, it usually creates a lot of controversy because legal principles don't change unless people or lawmakers change them, and moral principles change all the time. Our society is ever evolving, and it really depends on the people to evaluate what principles matter and what principles don't, what needs to change and what don't. And society sometimes is wrong. So we get principles that aren't necessarily true. For example, Jim Crow laws, right? Just to point out something in American history, Jim Crow laws, extraordinarily immoral, however, extraordinarily legal back in the day. So the idea of morality and legality often create a lot of conflict because a lot of people feel that legal rules aren't necessarily moral. I personally believe that legal rules shouldn't necessarily be about moral arguments. They should be more about a combination of ethical and logistical and humane arguments, more so than simply moral arguments, but it does create a lot of conflict. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the video. Very simple, just basic terms of legality and morality, and I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know.